The holiday season is upon us.
And France being a traditionally Catholic country, the major end-of-year celebration is Christmas. But this year, things are going to be a little particular.
The lights may be lighting up the streets, but there's less excitement in the air. All of the cheer and Christmasing has been replaced by masks and social distancing.
So how is the coronavirus pandemic going to affect the way that French people celebrate the holidays at the end of the year?
In this French Connections Plus Les Fêtes de Fin d'Année COVID edition.
"2020 has been a challenging year, to say the least, and many people are eager to turn the page. Bring on 2021.
Like many places around the world, France has been hard hit by the pandemic. It's radically changed people's lives and has become an uninvited guest this holiday season.
The government says we won't be able to celebrate Christmas like previous years and has called on people to keep family gatherings small.
Which is hard here in France, where Christmas is all about massive family celebrations. But there is one thing that COVID won't change, and that's when the French celebrate Christmas.
Now, December 25th is a public holiday and people get together for a family lunch, but in many ways, the 24th of December is more important.
In France, it's all about Christmas Eve. People gather around a beautifully decorated table for a delicious meal, usually very late at night, because traditionally the meal is eaten after midnight mass.
And there's a name for this meal. It's called the Réveillon de Noël. And as for the menu, it's very specific.
Joyeux Noël!
Christmas is a time of celebration in France. It's a moment when people really blow out on their food budget and taste all the delicious things that France has to offer. And people do tend to splurge on luxury items that are associated with the end of the year.
First up, some traditional appetizers, hors d'oeuvre, which are also known here as amuse-bouche, which translates into fun for your mouth.
And one thing that people particularly appreciate is smoked salmon. Now, people typically eat it on canapes, and they'll usually eat some sort of fish roe. Now, if you can afford caviar, go for it, it's delicious, but there are other budget options as well, such as tarama, which is a creamy fish roe spread, and people tend to eat it on blinis, which is a Russian sweet pancake.
Now, after the appetizers, you have the starters. Foie gras is a big one here in France at Christmas time. It's controversial, it's even banned in some countries, but here in France, it's really a Christmas standard. You usually eat it with toast and with some dried fruit like a fig or jam.
Next, people tend to have some sort of seafood, or seafruit, as it's called in France, les fruits de mer. So that can be shrimp, or scallops, or sea urchins, or lobster, but the king of Christmas is the oyster.
And that's just the beginning.
Let's go to the table. Passe-moi à table.
On passe à table. Another Christmas favorite is escargot, or snails. Now, it is a bit of a cliche here in France, but around the holidays, people really do tend to eat them.
And people like to eat escargot roasted with garlic and butter. Now, they might look a little disgusting, but they're delicious. You just have to close your eyes and pop them in your mouth.
Another slightly strange but delicious Christmas dish is boudin.
People tend to think about boudin noir, which is blood sausage, but at Christmas time, people tend to eat boudin blanc, which has all sorts of mysterious things in it we don't want to think about, but it too is delicious. And after all that comes the pièce de résistance, some kind of bird. People tend to have this for Christmas lunch as well. Now, traditionally, it's a dinde de Noël, a Christmas turkey, or a capon, a castrated chicken. Tonight we chose a guinea fowl.
A guinea fowl with chestnuts, because chestnuts are always a Christmas staple in some shape or form. You can even have them as dessert, sugar-coated marron glacé, if you can stomach it.
Because you still need room for dessert. The traditional Christmas dessert is the inescapable bûche de Noël, the Yuletide log. It's a logged-shaped, delicious cake that you can buy at a boulangerie, or you can make one like you did, Genie.
I certainly did, and it's all about the kitsch decorations. There's the little Christmas Santa, there's the Christmas tree, all sorts of plastic decorations to make it look like a log in a real forest. And what does it taste like? Well, it can be chocolate like this one, but also hazelnut, chestnut, fruit, you name it. The Christmas réveillon meal can last up to 6 hours in some cases, and it is truly a tradition here in France.
And it's an unforgettable moment for children, too.
Joyeux Noël! Christmas in France is all about the food, and this year it's probably one of the only normal traditions that will carry through because so much else has been canceled due to the pandemic.
Well, that goes, for instance, for les étrennes, which are donations that you usually make to employees from the post office and the fire station, even garbage collectors.
They usually come knocking door to door asking for a donation in exchange for a calendar, but this year they're not allowed to do that.
Another tradition that's been stamped out are Christmas markets. Many have just been canceled across the country.
Les marchés de Noël are usually a place to do a little Christmas shopping and taste some more delicious things like mulled wine or snails.
One tradition still in place, however, is more controversial.
As a traditionally Catholic country, the nativity scene, which is called a crèche, is a Christmas staple in France. But in recent years, there's been a big debate surrounding these nativity scenes and whether they should be allowed in public areas, for instance, in front of a town hall. France is, after all, a strictly secular country, and a law from 1905 on the separation of church and state forbids any religious displays in public space. But many French people see crèches as a traditional thing, not necessarily a religious one. France's highest administrative court, the Conseil d'État, weighed in, ruling that it was lawful to display a nativity scene in public space so long as it has a cultural, artistic, or festive purpose. But that decision remains disputed by hardline defenders of state secularism, laïcité. One thing everyone can get behind is the gift of giving. But here again, there are divisions over when to open presents. Christmas Eve or Christmas morning? In France, the debate over the appropriate time to open gifts has yet to be resolved.
Merry Christmas!
1 week after Christmas Eve, New Year's rolls around.
While Christmas is all about the family, people tend to celebrate New Year's Eve with their friends. And here again, a lot of food is involved.
Just when you thought you couldn't eat another bite, there is another réveillon. But the New Year's Eve menu is slightly lighter than the Christmas Eve one. Foie gras, oysters, and lots of champagne.
When the clock strikes 12, people wish each other a Happy New Year, Bonne année.
But there's a very strict set of rules governing just how and when to say Bonne année. We call them the Happy New Year commandments.
Number 1, before January 1st, thou shalt not say Bonne année to anyone. Why is that? Well, it's bad luck. What if something goes terribly wrong between now and the end of the year? Now, to get around this, we say Bonne fête de fin d'année.
Number 2, on January 1st, thou shalt say Bonne année to everyone.
And that means everyone you run into on that day, whether it's your baker or your cafe waiter, everyone. Number 3, during the month of January, and you have a month to do it, you have to say Bonne année to all your friends and family and colleagues the first time you see them. It's a marathon, it lasts a month, but you have to do it. If you don't, it's rude and bad luck.
The new year is an opportunity for a fresh start and a new cycle of traditions. And you guessed it, the very first one on the calendar has to do with food.
This is a king cake, une galette des rois.
It's one of our favorite traditions here in France, and it dates back to the Middle Ages.
Now, people eat king cake with their friends and family on January 6th to mark Epiphany, the day when the wise men arrived in Bethlehem.
But you can buy king cakes in bakeries from late December all the way through the end of January. They're so popular, and you can also make them.
It's actually very easy to make a king cake, and during the various lockdowns, a lot of people found a lot of solace in cooking, so we thought we would teach you how to make your very own king cake at home. To make a king cake, you need 2 puff pastries, 140 grams of powdered almond, 100 grams of sugar, 2 eggs, 75 grams of butter, and 1 egg yolk. And then you mix all those ingredients, except for the egg yolk, in a bowl.
And then you spread the filling out onto the puff pastry.
And leave a little space like a pizza.
Now it's time for the thing that really makes the king cake unique. Inside it, before you bake it, you hide a little porcelain charm or trinket.
It's called a fève in French, which is the word for bean because originally it was a bean. These days, cake makers go nuts on the designs, and you can actually collect these fèves, in which case you're called a fabophile.
Now, whoever gets the fève in their piece of cake gets a year of good luck and prosperity.
But do watch your teeth and don't choke on it.
Then you carefully put the puff pastry on top.
Hey,
and you seal the edges.
Perfect. And at this point comes another fun part where you can get creative with the design on top.
Then what you do is you take a little bit of egg yolk, you brush it on top to make it shiny. Then you pop it in the oven for 20 minutes. When you're ready to serve the cake, it's called tirer les rois. And to make it fair, the person who is the youngest goes under the table to say who should get which slice.
Now, if you get the fève, you get to be king or queen for the day, and you get to wear a crown, which you can make at home as well, and you get to choose a king or queen that you will share it with. Now, we're going to tirer les rois, Genie, and it's kind of like playing the lottery. We'll see what happens. But it's going to be you, because it's always you, Genie.
I got it!
There you go.
You can be my queen, Flo. Bon appetit! Many of you had your own questions about this very particular holiday season, including Shaid Sayed, who wrote, "Are people in France going to celebrate Christmas and New Year on things like Zoom, WhatsApp, Skype?"
Well, new technology certainly has transformed the way that people have communicated during the various lockdowns, and it's probably going to be a staple this holiday season as well, though I hope it doesn't become a tradition.
Me too. All right, next, Greg Smith wanted to know if the French have a cheesy Christmas. I mean, there's got to be cheese on the menu somewhere, right?
Well, it's not the pièce de résistance, but cheese certainly is part of the Christmas meal. And people usually treat themselves to fancy cheeses like brie with truffles. And then there are all the other winter cheesy meals that we eat here in France, like fondue and raclette, but we'll have to explore them in another show.
Sounds delicious. All right, that wraps it up for this special Christmas COVID edition.
If you have any questions, you can always reach out on Facebook or tweet me at Villeminot.
Stay safe, everybody, and have a happy holiday season if you celebrate it. And
Bonne fête de fin d'année!